Shan-Woo, I want to bring you into the conversation right now and bring in the Paul Manafort trial because, as we said, something fascinating happened at the close of business yesterday, which is the jury asked 4 questions. 2 of them seemed to get to exactly what the defense had been arguing in terms of some of the evidence that had been submitted. And then one of them was a question that you say is the type of question that prosecutors hate to hear, especially this early in deliberations, which was, can you give us a definition of reasonable doubt?
That's absolutely right, John. As a prosecutor, you don't ever want to hear that word. I would try not to even say it during the trial. And usually that tends to be asked a little bit later in deliberations. They're getting close to actually voting, or there's a holdout, and they're asking the judge to help clear that up. None of the definitions used for reasonable doubt are particularly clear, so it's seldom that much help. Usually jurors are trying to use that definition to convince or twist somebody else's arm to go along with something. This is coming out very, very early in the deliberations. It was only their first day, so that's got to be a cause of concern for the prosecutors.
We know it was well embraced, though, by the defense attorneys, saying last night, hey, this is great. This makes us feel really good about it. And I would imagine that maybe that gives a little feeling, too, to some folks in the White House, because we know that this is a focus, even if it's not said out loud, Maggie.
I think that's right. Look, I mean, I think that the president has been watching this trial, and he's been very concerned about it, and he's been very concerned about, that it will be connected back to him in some way. Frankly, it really hasn't been throughout most of the trial. It's been about, $15,000 ostrich skin jackets and Paul Manafort's lifestyle, and very little about, other than the timeline, about the Donald Trump campaign. But certainly Rudy Giuliani has put out there in his publicity blitz that, if this is a loss, this is going to impact what Mueller does in one way or another. I don't actually subscribe to that theory. I think that is noise. I don't think that's true. I think whatever Mueller is going to do in relation to Trump and obstruction and collusion and his son, that's completely separate. But I do think that this has been an incredibly high-profile case. It was one of their, I think it was their very first, or among their very first indictments, and it was comprehensive, and there have been several superseding indictments since then, and a loss would be problematic in the court of public opinion about this investigation. I know we all say, Mueller is above that and he's not paying attention. Everybody pays attention to that kind of thing.
Oh, look, I don't know that we fully explored the political implications of what it would mean if there's an acquittal in this first case. I can imagine Rudy Giuliani coming out with all kinds of statements immediately. I can imagine why wouldn't he? And President Trump. I could imagine there'll be some suggesting President Trump maybe should pardon Paul Manafort before the next trial.
Or that President Trump should shut down the Mueller probe, because look at what happened here. I mean, I think you can take this in a bunch of different directions. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will go there, but it is something people should be prepared for. I mean, I was taken aback by that question coming yesterday, and I have covered courts before, but I also know that jurors sometimes also like to wait until Friday before they actually make a decision on anything, and so I think the fact that it was a Thursday shouldn't be completely lost.
So that could be happening. All of this, of course, as yesterday we learned in a court filing, that for this next trial for Paul Manafort, there are it's 3 times the amount of evidence. 1,000 pieces of evidence. They are different trials. But Chan, as you were looking at what's coming up next for Paul Manafort there, you're saying that case may not be as strong. Why?
It's not as strong because it focuses a little bit more on the FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, requirements, which is much more of a registration type case. I mean, there is financial fraud involved, but it's not going to be quite as lavish lifestyle focused as this one was. And from a strategic point of view, it's interesting, the Manafort team could have chosen to let both cases be consolidated in D.C., and they took a bit of a gamble having to defend on 2 fronts, but it really has ratcheted up the pressure on both sides for the outcome of this particular first trial.
Shan-Woo, Maggie Haberman, great to have you with us this morning, talking about all the news, the developments, and the breaking news. No parade.
No parade.
No parade.
I mean, who could have thunk that one?
Yeah, who would imagine?
I would never have imagined. All right, thank you both.